In Activity 3, What Makes a Shadow?, students discover that not all objects cast shadows. They then observe that objects produce light shadows, dark shadows, or no shadows, depending on how much light they allow to pass through them. You will need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 3, light sources with bulbs, plastic tumblers, plastic wrap, waxed paper, and extension cords. You will also need to provide books, clear plastic reclosable bags, cardboard box, and tap water. To prepare for the activity, make a copy of Activity Sheet 3 for each student. Arrange the room so that it can be darkened as much as possible. Also, collect extension cords as needed. Then, plug in the light sources with light bulbs and place them in the center of desks or tables in front of a flat wall. Make sure the wall surface is suitable for casting a shadow and that the light sources are positioned as to not interfere with each other. Then, fill each tumbler half full with water. Cut 30 centimeter by 30 centimeter squares of plastic wrap and waxed paper. Each team of 4 will need a light source with a light bulb, a book, a tumbler half full of water, a square of plastic wrap, and a square of waxed paper. Finally, make a chart on the board. To begin the activity, tap on the wall and the window. Ask students, what's the difference between these two objects? Accept all reasonable suggestions at this time. Guide students to conclude that light can pass through one and not the other. Then ask, what's the difference between a plastic bag and a cardboard box? Again, students should understand that light can pass through one and not the other. Hold up a book and ask students, can light go through this book? Students should respond that light couldn't pass through the book. Then, show the students the chart. Record the answer by writing no under the book on the first line of the chart. Hold up in turn a tumbler of water, a sheet of waxed paper, and a sheet of plastic wrap. Ask if light can pass through each of them. Students should understand that light could go through all of these objects. If some students answer that the light cannot go through the objects, hold the object up close to them so they can try to see through it. Record the answers on the first line of the chart. Hold up the book again and ask students, do you think this book can make a shadow? Students should respond yes. Then, hold up the tumbler of water, the waxed paper, and the plastic wrap and ask whether these objects will create a shadow. Do not confirm or deny the students' responses at this time. Tell students that they will work in teams to find out which objects can produce shadows and assign each team of 4 to a light source. Be sure to warn the students not to touch or reach over the light bulbs because they can get very hot. Also, do not allow the plastic wrap to touch the bulbs as it will burn or melt. Give each team of 4 a book, a tumbler of water, a sheet of waxed paper, and a sheet of plastic wrap. Ask students, how can you find out if these objects can make shadows? Students should remember that they can turn on the light source and then hold each object a few inches away from the wall within the area where the light shines on the wall. Darken the room. Ask the students to find out which objects can make shadows and instruct them to pay attention to how dark the shadows are. Tell the students to make sure the plastic wrap and waxed paper are spread out flat rather than balled up when testing them. Turn the lights back on and ask students, what did you learn about the book? Can it make a shadow? Is the shadow light or dark? Students should note that the book casts a dark shadow. On the second line of the chart, under the book, shade in a dark shadow. Next, ask the students about each of the other objects they tested. The students should see that the tumbler of water and waxed paper cast faint shadows, and the plastic wrap casts almost no shadow at all. Record the students' responses by shading in light shadows under the tumbler of water and the sheet of waxed paper, and even lighter shadows under the plastic wrap on the second line of the chart. Ask students, how can you tell whether or not an object will make a shadow? Students should conclude that if light cannot pass through an object, that object will create a shadow. And conversely, if light can pass through an object, it will create a faint shadow or no shadow. Then, ask students, what is an example of an object that lets light pass through it? Do they create shadows? Students should respond that objects like the plastic wrap and the glass window let light pass through, so they create no shadows. Other objects like the tumbler of water and the sheet of waxed paper only let some light through and create faint or pale shadows. Ask students, what is an example of an object that does not let light pass through it? Do they create shadows? Students may mention the book or the cardboard box, and that both create shadows. Finally, give each student a copy of Activity Sheet 3 and instruct students to circle objects that they think will create a dark shadow. Have them put an X on objects that they think will make a faint shadow or no shadow at all. Then review their answers with them. Challenge the students to identify which objects let light pass through them and which do not. To conclude the activity, have the students pour out the water, leave the tumblers to air dry, and discard the squares of plastic wrap and waxed paper. Unplug the light sources and return them, along with the rolls of plastic wrap and wax paper, to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.